The LA Clippers were looking to make it 6-4 on Sunday night against the Utah Jazz, the red-hot Utah Jazz. How did they get outscored 18-6 in the last 5 minutes and 35 seconds to lose the game at home? Going to be talking about that on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team, every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and of course, to subscribe to my own YouTube channel known as Dime Dropper for more LA sports content and NBA history content and NBA content in general. Today's question: are you worried about Reggie Jackson's injury? Does it help the team? Does it hurt the team? Let me know, because he did get injured in this game, but that wasn't one of the major stories, not in my opinion. The major story for me was that the Clippers, who were winning by a point going into the fourth quarter and were up by 4 points with 5:35 to go, got outscored 18-6 in the remainder of the game to lose the game 110-102 to this young, rebuilding, supposed to be tanking Utah Jazz team. But that has been the furthest thing from reality so far this season. This Utah Jazz team is young, they play with some pace, and they have a lot of athleticism. And one of their more athletic guys, if not maybe their most athletic, in Jared Vanderbilt, who came over in the Rudy Gobert trade, did not even play in this game. So the Jazz started Malik Beasley in place of him. But one thing I noticed about the Jazz, and it applies whether Vanderbilt's playing or not in that starting lineup, is that they have 5 guys that can shoot the 3 ball, and they're switching basically everything, which is pretty interesting. At least with Olynyk, Markkanen, and Vanderbilt, when he plays, they're switching everything. And that kind of makes up for Conley and Jordan Clarkson's size deficiencies on that end. But the way the Clippers kind of lost this game, was falling too in love with the 3 ball for me. 0 for 11 from deep in the fourth quarter. That's the Clippers. They were 0 for 11, 5 of those being shot by Paul George. And Paul George, who had an incredible night for the most part. He was amazing through 3 quarters, 31 points through 3 quarters. He was killing from the end of the first quarter, where he had 3 mid-ranges and 3 threes in a row. You thought he was going to go on a little flurry, and that was a little 3-point flurry right there by him. And he just had a great first half overall, a solid third quarter as well. But the fourth quarter, he just kind of seemed to run out of gas. But that doesn't really excuse some of the poor shots that he took and the team took. And as I always say, the team follows in the direction of the leader. And Paul George was just hoisting him up there, not being aggressive. And what was really frustrating was the score was 91-87. Clippers were up by 4. Marcus Morris then comes into the game for Ivica Zubac, who played the entire third quarter and obviously the beginning of the fourth quarter. So he had to go out for his little rest. So the Clippers went with their John Wall, Norman Powell, Marcus Morris Sr., Nico Batum kind of lineup. And again, similar story to as we've seen this season. Not getting great looks, but also not much resistance around the basket. And, Nico Batum, somebody I noticed in this game, he just didn't have the best defensive game especially. He looked a little slower. And if I'm going to be real, I've been kind of lenient on Nico so far this season, and I do prefer him as a starter. But so far, he hasn't been great off the bench. He's had very average games, and this one wasn't a great one. He got beaten off the dribble a couple of times, and he was also behind on a lot of screen actions. There was one stretch of the second quarter where there was one play he got blown by, another one where he didn't know if he was switching or what his coverage was in the pick and roll with Terrence Mann defensively. And then there was another one where Lauri Markkanen came off a little curl, a little pin down, and Nico Batum was a step behind him. So that's just rare. You don't see Nico be so pedestrian, as I refer to him, just kind of not going through the motions, but just kind of having a game where he didn't really affect it very well. He hit 1-3, only shot 3 times. But I don't think that you can put all of the problems of that small ball lineup with Nico. I mean, the Clippers got Robert Covington back, but he only played 6 minutes, and those were in the first half, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember him playing in the second half. But in that stretch in the fourth quarter, Zubac checks out of the game at the 8:49 mark. Clippers are up 91-87. And then by the time he checks back in, the Clippers are down 104-98. So they were outscored in that stretch 17-7 in those non-Zoo minutes. And it's like, look, you had to take Zoo out of the game. You had to. But one thing that really changed when Zoo came out of the game was the way the Jazz tried to attack and tried to take the initial defender the Clippers had off the dribble and try to get to the rim. They got 3 fouls in one possession, in a 10-second span, in one possession, immediately when Zubac came out of the game. Now, one of them was a loose ball foul on Terrence Mann that there was absolutely nothing there. It was a terrible call. I was at the game, and I was pretty incensed because it was also Terrence Mann's 5th foul. And that made me a little angry. And then Norman Powell gets called for a foul, just being a little over-aggressive. And actually it was Nico Batum that got called for a foul for being, I guess, a little over-aggressive, a little body contact. Colin Sexton fell to the floor, and they called a foul. And then 2 seconds later, Norman Powell gets called for hand-checking. So 3 fouls in that possession. And you knew, though, when you saw that, the refs are going to start calling this a little bit more ticky-tack. So you'd figure the Clippers would get more aggressive, but that's not really what happened, which was very disappointing. It started with, the Clippers are still up 4, though, 96-92 with 5:35 left, and that's where I said they got outscored 18-6. And I'm going to describe some of the possessions that happened. And by the way, at this point, Zubac is still out of the game. So Paul George gets Kelly Olynyk switched onto him. And as I said, part of the reason why the Clippers, or should I say Paul George, played so well was because in the first quarter, they were switching Olynyk and Markkanen. Like, they were basically giving him anybody he wanted. And one-on-one, nobody in that starting lineup, with Jared Vanderbilt out, nobody in that lineup could guard him one-on-one. He was just getting whatever he wanted, shooting over dudes, coming off screens for threes, getting to the rim. They just couldn't stop him. So I figured they wouldn't have an answer for him all night. But I will give Lauri Markkanen credit. This is the second time I've seen him play against the Clippers in the last 2 years at the Staples Center, and he did it for different teams. One with the Cavaliers last year and another one this time with the Jazz. And he's done a decent job defending Paul George both times when he's been guarding him. Last season, it was early in the season when they were kind of implementing the stricter officiating things, and they were letting him get away with hand-checking the entire game. But this game, it was more lean, more tightly called, and Markkanen still had some decent defensive possessions on Paul. But when it was 96-96, PG had Kelly Olynyk on him, and after 17 fouls had already been committed by the Clippers, and the refs are being whistle happy, he settled for a 3, and he did create good separation on it, and he had shot well from 3, but in a situation like that, I'd like to see him go to the rim. But okay, he misses. And then the next possession, Norman Powell takes a bad 3-pointer with 14 on the shot clock. It was not an open shot, and he had already missed every single 3 he had taken in the game. And a timeout is taken with the Clippers down 5, 101-96 after those possessions. Malik Beasley hit a 3 in the corner on a Kelly Olynyk swing because Norman Powell was switched on to Olynyk, and Marcus Morris Sr. felt like doubling. So the Clippers went down by 5. After that, I really thought Ivica Zubac would come back in the game, but that would not be the case. He would sit out a little bit longer, and I was really disappointed because it was only 4 minutes and like 40 seconds left in the game. And, Terrence Mann checked in for Norman Powell, and Terrence Mann had 5 fouls, and he played fantastic tonight. I'm going to get into him more as the podcast goes on, but He comes into the game and immediately PG tries to drive to the basket and finds Terrence Mann on the cut for a dunk. I mean, it's just that simple. Paul George being aggressive, getting to the basket, makes things happen. The settling is just not it. It's just not it. And then after Colin Sexton got an and one on the next play where he blew by, I don't know if this was the one where he blew by Paul George or he blew by John Wall, but Zubac came in at the 3-minute and 42-second mark after the Clippers were down by 6. However, the Clippers are still in this game, and Paul George missed 2 straight threes in about an 8 to 10 second period. The first one wasn't a terrible look, but then the Clippers were fortunate enough to get a steal, and it was a 2-on-2 break, and the only 2 guys inside the 3-point line on the break were Colin Sexton and Mike Conley, the 2 smallest players on the court, and Paul settled for another 3 after he had just missed 2. Missed it. That really got me angry at the game because I really am not a fan of when players settle for transition threes when they can get layups, and at that point, Paul George had missed. So if you want to tell me that he was tired and that's why he shot the 3, and by the way, he was tired. All his threes were short. That's a sign of tired legs. He could have taken slower strides to the rim on that one. He had enough room and enough time, so there's no excuse for that one. Get to the rim. Those guys are too small. You're going to get fouled at bare minimum. And, Colin Sexton, I got to give him credit. He was really attacking the rim all game long, but in that fourth quarter especially. And then John Wall shot a terrible corner 3 with 9 on the shot clock a couple possessions after. And then PG, a bad 3 after they were gifted another possession after John Wall missed his 3 when Malik Beasley could not catch the ball and it went out of bounds, and Paul George just got a catch-and-shoot corner 3 with 14 on the shot clock, falling away over Lauri Markkanen and missed, and the Clippers shot 0 for 11 from 3 in the fourth. Funny part is Paul George got to the rim one more time in that fourth quarter, and he found Zubac for a dunk, so I digress. 0 for 5 from 3 for Paul. As great as he had a game, as great of a game as he had, it just wasn't enough, and you expect your star to be better in the fourth quarter. Point blank, end of story. Now, am I putting it all on Paul George? Absolutely not. As a team, Clippers made poor decisions, but I do think it starts from him. 34 points for him, 11 for 22 from the field, but 5 for 14 from deep. He started out hot, but as you can see, 14 of his 22 shots were threes, and that didn't bode well for the Clippers. 7 for 8 from the foul line, so again, continuing to get to the foul line is good for Paul. He also had 8 rebounds and 4 assists, but 5 turnovers. He's got to be a little smarter there. But coming up, I'm going to be talking about what the Clippers can potentially do about the non-Zubac minutes, how the rest of the game went, and how the others did. Going to be talking about that coming up. The Clippers are playing against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Monday night, and in that game, I am taking Marcus Morris Sr. to have over 15 points. I'm taking Donovan Mitchell to have over 5 assists, and I'm picking Ivica Zubac to have over 2 blocks. And I am doing that on Prize Picks. It's a daily fantasy entry app. You just pick oh my God, I always mess that part up. You pick 2 to 5 players and predict if they will score more or less than the Prize Picks projection that they've laid out. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry, and it's not competing against other people. It's just you against the projections. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL, college basketball, which is about to start, and anything else. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. It's safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Just download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So, let's get back to the clip show, or the no-show in the fourth quarter as it was. But I'm just going to be talking about the game overall. and how it kind of went. The first quarters have been a huge problem for the Clippers this season in those losses against against Oklahoma City twice and against Phoenix. But in this one, they came out pretty decent. I always talk about giving teams you're supposed to beat confidence by being lazy on defense to start. I don't think that was the case tonight. And, Luke Kennard was out again for the first game. His first game he's missed this season, if I'm not mistaken. Felt chest discomfort. And, he did go out in the middle of the San Antonio game. So Terrence Mann started in his place and had his best game of the season. He hit a mid-range early on, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game for Terrence. He got to the basket, but mostly off the ball. Just such an intelligent cutter off the ball. And it really gives the Clippers a nice dynamic when the defense loads up on guys like John Wall and Paul George. Because not only does Terrence Mann cut well, he finishes well at the rim because he can elevate well, and he has a good utilization of pump fakes around the restricted area. He's always had that. And I really love that element. And he also obviously competes on the defensive end. And it was noticeable how much better his defense was getting over screens than Reggie Jackson. I had a really good seat tonight, and I could see it. Reggie Jackson still just dying on screens and just not having a very strong performance tonight. He did get injured and didn't play as much in the second half. But I honestly think that was to the Clippers' benefit the way he was playing. And I hate to say that because I really love Reggie Jackson. But 20 minutes again tonight. 20 minutes tonight, 1 for 3. He made his only 3, which was nice, and it was in rhythm, a nice, good shot attempt in the second half, early in the third quarter. But he only had 3 points, 1 rebound, 1 turnover, just not really there offensively. But I didn't mind the lack of activity offensively, but defensively, he just was clearly the weak link. And one thing that was a little bit awkward for Ivica Zubac that had him having a tough first half was that Kelly Olynyk and Lauri Markkanen are pick and pop bigs more than pick and roll. So Zubac doesn't get to play drop coverage on that. If he does, those guys get open threes. It was a little bit awkward. But I will say, despite all that, it was Jordan Clarkson's incredible shot making in the first half that got Utah 63 points. I mean, the guy was just, what he's capable of as obviously a guy who's won 6th Man of the Year in 2021 when the Jazz got the first seed, and obviously, Clipper fans know the rest. But Jordan Clarkson was hitting such difficult shots, whether it be in the mid-range area, on the run, step-back threes, contested threes. He had a 4-point play with Robert Covington getting over the screen. And then Lauri Markkanen didn't miss a shot till the second half. He didn't actually shoot that much in the first half, but the first shot he made was just ridiculous. A deep 3 contested from the right wing. And the Jazz, because of that, they were able to stay with the Clippers, who, with Marcus Morris Sr. and Paul George having really solid first quarters, they were still able to withstand that. And it was a 29-29 game after one. By the way, as for the Zubac substitution pattern thing, in this game he came out a little bit earlier in the first quarter at the 5:33 mark, but he only had a minute and a half rest, came back in at the 4:01 mark to play with John Wall. And I think the goal was to make John Wall and him play in that pick and roll. But what I really realized, and it's been happening for 2 straight games now, is the teams are going to start going underneath the screens on John Wall. And I said that the second we got him, and I said that in various podcasts for Locked On before the season began, that he's going to have to prove that he can make that mid-range. And tonight, the guy did not make one jump shot. All his jump shots were no good, and his shots at the rim were very good. But it was a problem. And then Norman Powell got 2 wide open looks at threes in that second quarter, missed them both. Even though he did a decent job of getting to the rim and finishing there, he was 0 for 3 from 3 in the game. And one of those was that bad shot in the fourth quarter, but the other 2 were really good looks in that second quarter. And the Clippers again kind of went on a little bit of a drought. And Jordan Clarkson in that second quarter, alongside Colin Sexton, was really continuing his onslaught. And a guy that I mentioned in my personal, Dime Dropper podcast episode was Walker Kessler. I've watched a lot of Jazz games this season, not for the Jazz, but for the teams they've played against. And Walker Kessler, their backup big, is a hell of a rim protector for his age. And he showed that in his limited minutes in this one as well. 16 minutes for him and 2 blocks. One of them, he just stuffed Zubac on a jump hook attempt. And I wasn't surprised at all because I've seen him play. The non-Paul George minutes in that second quarter were a struggle. Absolutely were a struggle. And it's going to have to come down to Norman Powell and John Wall making shots and making plays. It really is. And when John Wall's teams are going underneath the screen, that doesn't make John Wall get that downhill ability in that pick and roll. You might as well not set a screen at all. Just let him go isolation at that point. But you got to hit that shot. And John Wall has been hitting his mid-range to a decent rate this season. It's the three ball that he's been struggling with, and I think he should honestly just tone down. But he was practicing three-pointers after the game tonight. If he makes them, it's cool with me. But I just think that not everybody needs to shoot threes, and I think John Wall is amazing the way he is, just focusing on getting to the rim and hitting the mid-range. But if he can start hitting them, more power to him. Terrence Mann checked back in, though, in that second quarter, as well as Paul George, and they started just doing damage. Much better defense, finishing better. Paul George obviously had like 24 points in the first half. Terrence Mann started 6 for 6 from the game. Besides the 9 turnovers the Clippers had in the first half, I mean, mind you, the Jazz had 10, and I want to give the Clippers credit. Their defense had very active hands, and the Jazz turned the ball over at some careless ones, unforced, but the Clippers did have very active hands, and a lot of that was Terrence Mann, Paul George, even Nico Batum, to a degree. But Clippers ended the second quarter not so great. The Jazz led by 7 going into the third, but the Clippers quickly tied the game in the third. It's, again, Terrence Mann, Marcus Morris, and Paul George. Marcus Morris also in the same boat as Paul George. A lot of guys just couldn't guard him. When they switched Mike Conley and Malik Beasley and Jordan Clarkson on him, it was easy money. And I honestly thought maybe we should have gone to that more in the fourth quarter, because Marcus Morris was 8 for 16 and shot 50%. But again, Mook has not been great from 3 so far this season. 1 for 7 from deep. And ultimately, when I went back to the last segment and said the Clippers lost because they chucked too much from 3, even before the 0 for 11 in the fourth, they were 8 for 22. So they weren't shooting that great. I just think that the Clippers at times, their over-reliance on the 3 ball can really do them in. And, third quarter and fourth quarter, Ivica Zubac adjusted and was hard hedging those screens and doing a much better job getting out of the perimeter and contesting. It was really improved, and he was starting to be the Zubac that we know, that we've seen this season, rebounding, affecting shots at the rim. When Walker Kessler came in, then he could play drop coverage, making a difference to the ball handler. It's just rebounding, help defense, everything that Zoo does great, rolling to the basket. And John Wall was putting on a show late in that third quarter, getting out in transition, and just the speed that he plays with, unbelievable. Did such a great job, had his classic behind the back move that gave the Clippers a 93-89 lead with 7 minutes to go in the game. And as I said, the rest was history. Fell too in love with the 3 ball, did not put enough pressure on the refs. The Jazz ended with 4 team fouls. The Clippers had 10. So that tells you all you need to know. But coming up, going to read the box scores, talk about the potential for the situation the Clippers are facing on Monday against the Cavaliers. It is not pretty. You're going to want to hear about it, though. Stick around. Okay. So let's just read the lines for the Clippers, the box score for them. As a team, shot 49% from the field. The Clippers will take that any day of the week. And this is the sad thing. They shot 12 more shots than the Jazz. But the Jazz shot 37.5% from deep, 15 for 40. And the Clippers shot 8 for 33, only 24%. So after a good shooting night, the best of the season for them in San Antonio, they respond with a dud. And I think a lot of them were just shots that they shouldn't have been taking. But that being said, you are going to see more of them go in. I assure you, Clipper Nation, you are going to see more of them go in, hopefully as soon as Monday night against the Cavs. But another glaring thing looking at this box score before we get into the individual numbers is the free throws. 25 for 26 from the line for the Jazz. That's 96%, but they also shot 26 attempts. Clippers only 13, so twice the amount. Clippers only made 8 out of the 13 attempts. That's no good. That's 61.5%. And that's because John Wall, again, love the guy, 0 for 4 from the foul line. He's really struggling at the line right now. And considering how frequently he gets to the rim and gets to the line, he needs to make more of his free throws, point blank. But I'm going to read the stat lines. Reggie Jackson, as I already said, only 3 points in 20 minutes, 1 for 3. Terrence Mann, though, 14 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, no turnovers, and 7 for 8 from the field. His only miss was a 3. I thought he was awesome. Both ends of the floor. I thought the refs were calling some really, really harsh calls on him, though, especially that 5th foul and the loose ball foul, and that caused him to go out of the game, and it was a crucial juncture that he missed. I also got to meet his mom tonight at the game. That was really nice. Really nice lady. So that was cool. Ivica Zubac, 35 minutes played for him, 12 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, and a block, 6 for 12 from the field, but sadly, no free throw attempts for Zoo. So that's disappointing to see. It's less on Zoo, more on the others for getting him decent looks and putting rim pressure on so he can dump it off to him. 6 for 12 from the field, though 50%. We'll take that all day long. Ivica Zubac had a very good second half. It's just sad how valuable he really is to the team, how indispensable. I mean, if Ivica Zubac was to get injured for 2 weeks, the Clippers would absolutely plummet. So I'm going to knock on wood right now, but my God, how reliant and dependent we are on him right now. It's scary. It's scary. But Marcus Morris Sr., 18 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, but he did turn the ball over 4 times, which is rare for Senior. And between Paul George and Marcus Morris, 9 turnovers out of 13. So, got to clean it up there. 8 for 16, though, from the field, 50%. 1 for 7 from deep. No good there. And then the last starter, Paul George, 34, 8 and 4. 5 turnovers. That's 8 rebounds, by the way. 5 turnovers. 11 for 22 from the field. 5 for 14 from deep. 7 for 8 from the line. And then for the bench guys, Nico Batum. As I said, 3 points, 1 for 3. All the shots were threes in 23 minutes. Just 3 rebounds, 2 assists. No steals, 1 block. Robert Covington had a donut in his 6 minutes, didn't even get a shot off. Norman Powell, 6 points, 3 for 8 from the field in 21 minutes. Just good going in the basket. He was 3 for 6 from 2, 0 for 3 from deep. 2 of them were really good shots, should have made them. Then one of them was just completely unnecessary. Amir Coffey played 1 minute at the end of the second quarter, so it doesn't really count. Clippers really went 9 deep tonight, and I don't mind if they play Amir Coffey, although you're going to see him on Monday night, that's for sure. John Wall, 12 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, only 1 turnover, so that's good. 6 for 15 from the field. Again, 6 for 11 from 2, 0 for 4 from 3, and 0 for 4 from the line, which really killed the Clippers because some of those free throws could have made a difference towards the end. As for the Jazz, any standouts from them? I mean, their highest score was Jordan Clarkson with 23 points. 17 of those came in the first half, though. So the Clippers did a decent job on him second half. He shot 8 for 15 from the field, but 6 for 9 from deep. 66% on 9 attempts. That's wild. And then, of course, you knew Mike Conley was going to have a great game. I mean, I could make a whole podcast on why Mike Conley is the biggest Clipper killer that I've ever seen. Honestly, that could be a whole podcast. 17 points for him, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and only 1 turnover on 7 for 13 shooting. So he had a really solid game. Lauri Markkanen, 18 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block on 5 of 9 shooting. Only 1 for 3 from deep, so decent that they kept him in check from the three-point line, but a very solid game for him. And then Malik Beasley had 10 points. Colin Sexton off the bench was the star in terms of, and he's putting a case in right now for 6th man of the year. I'm shocked they're not starting him over Conley, but 22 points for him on 6 for 13 shooting and 2 for 5 from deep, so he made his presence felt. As far as Reggie Jackson, he looked like he was limping, and I don't think he's going to play on Monday considering the way the Clippers have been in terms of keeping their guys cautious or being on the cautious side with their guys in terms of injuries. I don't expect Reggie Jackson to play. Also, John Wall will probably not play because it's a back-to-back. Actually, I've already heard that he's not playing. So does that leave the Clippers without a point guard and without Kawhi Leonard? Still don't know the status of Luke Kennard. If they have 4 rotation players out, that's going to need Amir Coffey's presence. That's going to need Brandon Boston Jr. You're going to see a Norman Powell probably starting at point tomorrow with Paul George, Terrence Mann, and then Marcus Morris and Zoo, which is not a bad starting lineup at all. Probably a lot of point guard Paul George. So he's got to take care of the ball. That's the really important thing. And just keep executing with the bench. You know, you might have to stagger Norman Powell and Paul George. Stagger meaning keeping one of them in. Because with just Brandon Boston, Amir Coffey, and Robert Covington off the bench, that's going to be tough to create shots. And Moses Brown needs to play tomorrow. I mean, he played well against the Rockets. And when Robin Lopez comes in the game tomorrow or on Monday, Moses Brown needs to play. It's the perfect matchup for him, in fact, because Robin Lopez is slow and old. So he's got to play. We can't go small ball against Robin Lopez because he will actually get rebounds and he'll throw it to him in the post. And he still has some good touch around the post. A right-handed jump hook. He has some skill there. So if the Clippers do that, it'll be suicidal, considering they also have Kevin Love off the bench, who would be the best choice for a small ball center right now. I just thought of an idea. Can the Clippers find a way to get Kevin Love over here? Come on home, Kevin. UCLA, you already know. All right, I'm getting a little too carried away. But, man, it's going to be a tough game. I've watched a lot of Cavs games this season, and they have been electric. In particular, when I say they, I mean Donovan Mitchell. He has done a number on the Clippers with the Utah Jazz in previous years. Obviously, the Clippers got him when it counted, but he really has torched him in pick and roll. And the way he is playing right now, I would not want to see him. Darius Garland just came back from an injury, so I'm not sure if he will play. That being said, that game will be hard, if not harder, than this game on Sunday. And the Clippers need to be ready, and they will be very shorthanded. The one positive I'd say, even though Reggie Jackson will be out, John Wall will be out, I think you'll see a lot bigger lineups and better defense. And I think Terrence Mann, if he plays a great game, Amir Coffey and Terrence Mann both, Clippers have a good chance of winning. But they also need something from Rocco and Nico. And if they can have a good day from three, that would be huge. And that all comes from Paul George creating good looks with dribble penetration and being aggressive. So we'll see. I will probably be at that game as well. But remember today's question. Are you worried about the Clippers not having Reggie Jackson? Because he's the only point guard that plays every game because John Wall's on the whole load management thing? Let me know in the comments. Or has Reggie just been so poor that you think this will be a positive? And I don't mean injury is a positive. I mean just not having him in the lineup. We obviously want Reggie Jackson to get well soon as fast as possible. But that's it for me. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. Just remember, for your next listen, to check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. You remember the age-old proverb, go Clippers, 5-5. See if they can get back over 500 against the Cavs.